Imagine that you are a student in a high school where 90% of the people are women, but none of them pay attention to you because you are ugly. Well, that's what happens more or less with our protagonist Aizai, who is a pervert with his pervert friends. He thought that for all his life he would not have a girlfriend, but one morning in the distance he sees a girl with red hair called Ria's Gremory, the most beautiful student of the school, and with very nice breasts. Aizai is obviously aware that he would not have a chance with that girl. But that same afternoon another girl from a different high school declares her love to our protagonist. He without thinking twice accepts her love declaration and they start dating, but again this woman turns out to be an evil being known as fallen angel called Rainer, who only likes to play with the hearts of boys without a chance with women to then kill them at the end. And here is how our protagonist dies. Our protagonist without more strength says aloud that one of his wishes was to be next to Ria's Gremory. Hours before, a mysterious girl gave him a rare poster which listens to his desire, and Ria's herself appears. Our protagonist wakes up in his room without knowing what happened, so he goes to the same place where he meets again with a fallen angel, and again Ria's Gremory saves him to wake up the next morning with her. At that moment our protagonist says, "Hey baby, a moment ago I almost died. What happened to me? My little friend, I will give you context. I am a demon from hell itself. Now that I save you and you want to be by my side, I turn you into a demon to be my pawn." Oh, okay, nice. From that day our protagonist walks with Ria's Gremory, and that same afternoon he discovers that Ria's private club is completely made up of demons, and each one has an interesting past which we will see as the summary progresses. Now let's start High School DxD, all 4 seasons in one video. Let's start. After all the above mentioned, I take this moment to introduce you to the other members of the club. First we have Akino, Ria's right-hand man, and she likes to say Ara a lot. Then we have Kiba, a well-endowed swordsman who summons several swords. He is the most handsome boy in high school, and all the girls want to be with him. At first Aizai hated him because he was handsome, but as time goes by they become friends. As our protagonist is now a demon, he must do the work of a demon for Ria's Gremory's group. He also has other skills such as demon wings or create portals, although the most important is his dragon glove. Yes, Aizai is a user of a celestial dragon called the Big Red, but we will call him Drake. As the season progresses, our protagonist will learn more skills from his dragon, and he will constantly communicate with him just to discuss things about demons. One quiet morning Aizai meets a blonde nun named Asia, which is Team Christ King and has healing powers. Another curious fact is that the demons that are not Team Christ King receive slight damage when they mention them. Ria's Gremory learns that he became friends with a nun and quickly told him not to go near the church and do things of God because that can kill him. Aizai obviously listens, because who would refuse to a beautiful woman like Ria's Gremory? That same night Aizai is invoked to fulfill the desire of a mortal. However, when he arrives he finds Asia with a crazy guy named Fred who brought him to kill him. Asia quickly defends him, however Fred the coward did not pay attention to her and he wanted to abuse her. Seconds later Ria's and company arrive to save Aizai, and Asia is left with the crazy man. Don't worry friends. The next day we see that Asia is fine and nothing bad happened to her. Although just at that moment Rainer appears, who kidnaps Asia because they are going to do a ritual to steal her healing ability, which could kill her. Our protagonist wants to save her even though Ria's forbids him, but Kaneko and Kiba help him because they are friends. At that time that all this planning is made by fallen angels. If you wonder what is a fallen angel, well, they are sinful angels who betrayed God and only work with church members who were expelled, for example Fred and Asia. Ria's wanted to stop the leaders of this type of angels and with the help of Akino defeated them. On the other hand Aizai finds Asia, but he arrives too late because the ritual is complete and Asia died. Our protagonist gets angry and starts a fight with Rainer because of all the hatred he has for her. He activates his dragon power, and he defeats Rainer. Well, actually it was Ria's Gremory who killed her, proving that this girl is a complete sadist. Because yeah, my friends, Ria's Gremory is a powerful demon. Aizai was sad because they killed her blonde girl, but Ria's revives her as a demon, a fact that I forgot. The demon leaders make a group through contracts for chess pieces. In the case of Aizai is all the pawns. After Asia becomes a demon she has to learn her skills. She still has her healing power, and she is still Team Christ King, but every time she tries to pray her head hurts. So she began to live with Aizai as an exchange student. Later we see that there is another group of demons that are the same student council. The most important members would be the President Zona, the Vice President Tsubaki, and Sally, who like Kiba and Aizai do not get along well at the beginning, but later they will be good friends. And after all that, I put in first place one of the most important themes of that anime, love. Ria's was shown as a cold girl, although when Aizai arrived she feels a great happiness and relaxation. Aizai for his part also feels things for Ria's Gremory, and he always tells her that he will protect her despite not having enough strength. All things seem to be going well, but one night Ria's all in a hurry asks Aizai to have sex quickly. However, a maid appears and she takes her away. The next day we learn that Ria's Gremory's parents wanted to marry their daughter to the son of another demon clan, the Phoenix. The fiancé is this blonde guy called King of Sir Phoenix who does not stop groping Ria's Gremory. Besides, he also has a sister who does not stop insulting our protagonist. Ria's obviously does not want to marry this man, so she challenges him to a duel, her harem against his group. Several days go by improving one of Aizai's abilities, which is to break clothes. He can also give energy and he uses it a lot in battles. The day of the duel arrives. At the beginning it seemed that it would be easy, but the group is being defeated by Heron of the Phoenix. At the end, Aizai fights hand to hand with Razor, although he is an asshole and he is defeated. Ria surrenders so that our protagonist does not get hurt, and the wedding is confirmed. Our protagonist wakes up very wounded, and at that moment a maid appears and tells him, "Young man, you have 20 minutes to get ready and stop the wedding. Bye. Take care." Aizai thinks twice, and just before the wedding starts he interrupts it in Shrek style. Our hero arrives at the wedding, and at that moment the leader of the Gremory clan, Ria's brother, appears. The same demon decides that all this conflict ends with a duel between Aizai and Razor, in that we see that our protagonist made a contract with the dragon to give him his maximum ability known as the Balance Breaker, only for a few seconds of course. Aizai defeated the demon, but then he runs out of power. The demon wants to take advantage of the bug, but our protagonist had more time to collect holy water, and with all that he defeated Razor. At that moment Razor's sister appears and she can't believe that her brother has been defeated by a weak demon. Although our protagonist tells her that if she wants to scold him she should tell him in his face. Those words apparently make the blonde woman fall in love. With the victory in his hands, Aizai escapes with Ria's to then tell her that he loves her very much, and if they have to sacrifice another part of his body to save her he will do it without any doubt. With all that said, Ria's gives him his first kiss. Our protagonist resting on Ria's Gremory's lap, and they are almost intimate, although they are interrupted by Asia. Later we see that Akino gets a little crazy because apparently she is interested in Aizio after his battle with the Phoenix, and from time to time she sucks his fingers because, as we remember, Aizai has trouble hiding his arm. On the other hand, we are introduced to this new character who is a millionaire guy who only invokes our protagonist to drink wine and fish in the river. The guy is very cool. Although the most important character in this first section is Kiba. One afternoon, while seeing pictures of Aizai when he was a little boy, Kiba observes a sword that looks familiar. That same night, while fighting against a demon, he could not concentrate on the battle because it came back memories of Vietnam. Our hero talks to Kiba, who tells him that he is seeking revenge against the sacred sword Excalibur. The sacred swords are swords made by God which are used to kill demons, and a simple scratch can be dangerous for anyone. In that we are mentioned that the Excalibur sword is the most powerful. Its sword was divided into 7 parts, and most of them are controlled by the church. They also tell us that many years ago several special children were kidnapped by the church to make experiments by the Excalibur sword. One of those children was Kiba, who with the help of his classmates managed to escape when the church was about to capture him. Ria's Gremory appears and saves his life by turning him into a demon carrying the sacred demonic sword, and from that day on he seeks revenge. Hours later, Kiba meets Fred, who had one of the Excalibur swords, generating more memories to the blonde. By pure bad luck, the bastard escapes. On the other hand, we are introduced to 2 new characters, 2 members of the church called Irina and Sinovia, which also carry Excalibur swords. Irina is a childhood friend of Aizai, and Sinovia is a cold but powerful girl. Both meet with Ria's Gremory to tell her some exiles of the church are looking for the Excalibur, so be very careful in this area. After that, the girls started to bully Asia because they consider her a traitor of the church. That's because Asia in the past used her healing powers with fallen angels and demons, something that the church didn't like very much. Aizai gets angry with their sayings, and together with Kiba they have a duel with these girls. Duel that both end up losing because these girls are using their Excalibur swords. This fight was not so important, but I mention it because these girls are the strongest ones here. The next day, due to the big mistake of the Excalibur, Aizai wanted to end this nightmare, asking for help to the blonde student council with Iko, Kiba and the members of the church to help him, all behind Ria's Gremory's back. The group goes to the church where the Excalibur was, but just at that moment Fred appears, and this guy that we will call the father, since he was the leader of the investigation of the Excalibur and the responsible for the death of Kiba's friends. At the end, the bad guys escape, and the only ones who chase them are Kiba and the members of the church. At that moment, Rias and the president of the council arrive to punish their servants for hiding secrets from them while the swordsmen chase Fred. However, a powerful being appears and leaves Irina badly wounded and takes her Excalibur from her. The next day the demons find her wounded, and at that moment they find out that the main responsible of the Excalibur was the leader of the fallen angels, Kacabian, who wants to reform the Excalibur and create a kind of bomb that will destroy the whole city. He also wants to start a war between the fallen angels, heaven and hell. Here starts a battle, blows, magic, kicks, swords, among other things. Seconds later, Kiba and Synovia arrive to fight with Fred, who already had 3 Excalibur swords, and turns them into one. It seems that our heroes had no chance of winning, but what they did not know is that Synovia had a sacred sword almost as powerful as the Excalibur. At that moment, Kiba takes the opportunity to talk to the father, who shows him a little bottle, and he tells him that they continued using the body of his deceased friends to extract all the energy, and that it only remains in this bottle. Kiba cries in pain, but then the soul of his friends appeared and tell him not to give up and that they will live in his heart. The motivated blonde fights against Fred and he breaks his Excalibur, and seconds later the father is betrayed by the Kacabian. The fight continues with the fallen angel to tell us the revelations. For a second, Akino fights with the fallen and then reveals that she is the daughter of one of the leaders of the fallen angels. That is to say that the woman is half demon and half fallen angel, but the most interesting revelation was the last one, since Kacabian says that a long time ago there was a war between the 3 races, and that in that war the 4 kings of the underworld and God died. That's right, friends, God is dead, and if you wonder who is ruling paradise, then the Archangel Michael and the 4 kings of the underworld were replaced by other powerful demons, and one of them is the brother of Ria's Gremory, and the other leaders we will meet later. The battle seemed lost, but just at that moment appears the second celestial dragon with balance breaker known as the White Dragon. In that White Dragon is known as Labial, which receives orders from the ruler of the fallen angels to send Kacabian to the depths of the underworld and freeze it. At that moment the White Dragon communicates with the Red Dragon, telling him that he will be waiting for him to recover his strength from his user, and so that in the future they will face each other and see who of the 2 is the most powerful, and he leaves. At the end of that battle, Kiba apologizes to his friends for being uncool. Riaz punishes him with 1,000 lashes, and everything is nice and happy. The next day we see that Synovia joins the Gremory Club because she now knows that God is dead and thinks that her life has no meaning. So she joins the demons so that her warrior spirit is useful. She also apologizes to Asia for everything she said, and they become friends. Something funny about this is that both girls try to pray, but they can't because they are demons. However, the story is not pure happiness, because the most shocking thing comes next. One night our protagonist was spending it quietly with his friend the millionaire, who reveals that he is the ruler of the fallen angels called Aizai, and says that soon the leaders will meet to discuss something important, but for now our protagonist can relax. Then comes the chapter of the swimming pool, where we see the women in swimsuits, but here begins the well-known Heron initiative, since our protagonist fell more in love with Riaz and Akino for protecting them all the time in the battle. Asia was always grateful to him. Kaneko begins to feel more and more secure with him, and even Synovia wanted to offer him to be intimidated. Later there is a cultural festival, but on the way the group meets the user of the White Dragon named Veli, who only came to tell Aizai to become stronger. That same day there is a visit from their parents, where we see the father of Ria's Gremory, his brother, and the second leader of the underworld known as a Leviathan, who would become the older sister of the President's Zone. Minutes later there is a meeting at the home of Aizai, where we know more about the father of Riaz, who tells her several embarrassing things about her daughter. Riaz goes to her room because of embarrassment, and Aizai accompanies her. Both take that moment to talk about what they feel. Riaz asks him who she is for him. Aizai at first tells her that he sees her as his superior, but deep down he is afraid that someday she will get a boyfriend because our protagonist only wants her for him. With that said, Riaz kisses him. Weeks later we meet the mysterious member of the Gremory team, Gasper. He is a half-demon vampire who had a hard childhood because he has an immense power to stop time. At first the little boy did not want to get out of a box, but with Aizai's help he begins to have more confidence with his teammates. Also Kaneko, Kiba and Synovia give him a paper bag and start with his training of his ability to stop time. And finally Aizai has a secret meeting with Riaz and Akino. But only Akino was there, and it was only to meet the ruler of heaven, the Archangel Michael, which gives him a sacred sword called the Dragon Slayer. Aizai fuses his glove with the sword and the angel go away. At that time Akino has a conversation with our hero that she is half demon and half fallen angel. She thought our protagonist would hate her for that, but he tells her, "No baby, you are very cute and that's why I love you." Akino is immediately happy and tells Aizai that she likes him, although the moment is interrupted by Riaz, who got jealous. However, that same night the demons agree to share with Aizai, and they sleep with him. After all these chapters, the long-awaited meeting of races occurs where all the leaders we met were going to make a peace agreement and plan that the other mythologies join them, but just that moment goes straight to hell because they are all attacked by a group that calls itself the Chaos Brigade. The group captures Gasper to use his power to stop time and to kill the leaders. The leaders go out to fight with this brigade while Rias and Aizai go to rescue Gasper. Our protagonist gives him some of his blood so he can control his power, and correctly freezes all the inferiors of the Chaos Brigade. Meanwhile, Azazel fights with the leader of the attack, who turns out to be a demon descendant of the original Leviathan who wanted to rule them all. Azazel uses the power of the dragon of Norse mythology called Fatmir and manages to defeat the demon, although he loses an arm. But here we will be surprised because he makes a revelation. Bailey, who everyone thought he belonged to the faction of the Fallen Angels, turns out to be one of the leaders of the Chaos Brigade. He made this attack to kill the leaders and that no one gets into their plans. The only one who can face him is Aizai, who has a lot of anger for this dragon for trying to defeat his women. So he releases the balance breaker without any problem, and here I play fight music. Our protagonist almost lost, but as Azazel knows him well, says to him, "My friend, your women's breasts will be reduced if Albion wins." The battle is interrupted by Sungyukin, well in fact is his descendant, who took Bali, so that this battle finishes in a tie. At the end they sign the peace treaty and plan to gather the other factions to stop the Chaos Brigade. Azazel becomes the director of the high school of our heroes and also their club representative, who orders all the girls to go live with our protagonist in a bigger house. And that is the end of the second season. Our protagonist waking up in his new home with his women, and also in this new season starts a new rivalry between Aquino and Rias, since both of them are the craziest for Aizai. So, which team are you? Team Rias or Team Aquino? Leave your answer in the comments. The group finished another school year and they were happy to finally take a vacation, but Rias tells them that there will be a meeting of young demons and Azazel will accompany them. There will also be a meeting with the gods of Norse mythology. To go to the underworld they go by train, where they spend hot moments in the novel because TNK erased them. Everything was going well, although as we saw in the last season about a member that was feeling bad. On that occasion the little Kaneko is the most worried. For a second the group was fighting with a dragon, but Kaneko is very distracted and ends up badly injured. In the end it turns out that everything was a test of Rias and Azazel to observe the level of the warriors fight. Later the group goes to the hot springs, where Azazel tells Aizai that his forte is Ria's Gremory breast, because so far in the anime Aizai proved to be a complete pig for the breast, so Azazel teaches him to touch breast as if they were buttons. Our heroes arrive at Rio's Gremory's house, where we meet her mother and quickly begin their training. Each member receives a special trainer. Aizai trains with the dragon with which they fought recently, while Aquino trains with her father, who tries to fix things with his daughter. And back we see that Kaneko has trouble fighting. That is because she feels fear for her hidden power. Then we learn that Kaneko has cat ears, as she is a Nekomata. She also had a sister named Kuroka. Losing their parents, both cared for each other. One day they were taken by a demon which wanted to use them as weapons. Kuroka released her maximum power as a demon and killed him to become an assassin and escape, so the demons saw this action and they wanted to annihilate Kaneko to avoid all possible dangers. However, the Gremory clan protected her and Rias joined her to his group of warriors. At night there is a meeting of the races, and special guests would be the gods of Norse mythology. In this case we are introduced to Odin and the brave Kyrir Roswit. And Aizai met other young demons, as Zeron Ball considered the strongest demon, this guy who keeps seeing Asia, and they are reunited with the sister of Razor Phoenix, which incidentally is called Rabel, which gives a gift from the Phoenix clan to our protagonist. I say this because it is important for the plot. For a second Kaneko leaves the party because her sister Kuroka was calling her to take her away, because it turns out that she is involved with the Chaos Brigade. Aizai and Rias follow her to find the cat and the descendant of Sungyukin. Luckily the dragon trainer arrives and fights with the monkey, while our protagonist confronts Kuroka, but he is no match for her. The only way to activate his power completely is by touching the breast of Ria's Gremory, and as if they were buttons he activates it and manages to face Kaneko, causing them to make a quick retreat. On the other hand, in the middle of a party appears the god Loki, who got into the party to kill his father and start the Ragnarok. However, appears the king Belzebu, who would be one of the kings of hell, which transports him to a distant land. Once they are already calmer, the gods discuss what to do with Loki, so they send the Gremory team along with the Valkyrie of Odin and the cute young Irina to take them to Earth and defeat Loki. Loki was waiting for them, and he invokes his beasts like wolves and a big snake. I am a big fan of Greek mythology, and I understood who those creatures are, but not to brag, I will only say that I understood the references. In the middle of the battles we saw that Irina made a contract with Miguel, and she became an angel. Kaneko for his part stopped being afraid because Aizai protected her throughout the trip, and she releases her power of Enakama. When the battle seemed lost, Odin sends them a copy of Thor's hammer, and the only one who can lift it is our protagonist, but just when he was going to take it, one of the wolves nibbles him very bad and here he dies. Don't get sad, because as we remember, Rabel Phoenix gave a little gift to our protagonist that turns out to be Phoenix's blood, and he can use it as healing magic, so Aizai comes back to life, grabs the hammer, and he defeats Loki. Thanks to this, our protagonist earns the respect of Odin, who is also a pervert like him and became famous in the underworld, and for children he is known as the OPPAI dragon, which Drake does not like very much, and he starts to cry. He was also called to make a children's song, and I say that because it is important for the plot. After a tremendous battle, our heroes return home and Kaneko falls in love with Aizai, increasing his harem even more. The next day our protagonist has a date with Akino because she asked him to, which made the harem a bit jealous. I understand about her, but it also happens with him, so it smells strange to me. Akino takes Aizai to a faraway place so they can't be found, and they end up in a motel block. It smells like they will be intimidated. But in the place was Odin and Akino's father. The fallen angel has a conversation with his daughter where they reveal that he is to blame for the death of Akino's mother. As the guy was a fallen angel, she inherited his genes, and evil beings wanted to kill her. However, the one who protected her to death was her mother, but Akino only saw that her father never saved her. At night, Akino thought that all his problems would disappear if she was intimidated with Aizai, and although he uses Drake to revive all the beautiful moments she lived with his father, thus achieving that she forgives him, and as thanks she gives a kiss to Aizai. Finally, the vacations are over and Irina moved to the school of our heroes as a representative of heaven. Odin forgets Roswit with our heroes, and the poor girl starts to cry because she is single and she wants to get married and blah blah blah. However, the most important thing is what comes next. Aizai and Asia were buying sports equipment since they committed to participate together in the 3 feet race, but just appears the stalker demon who keeps seeing Asia at the party. We see that this guy is called Deodora, who was one of the many demons that Asia cured with his power. This guy wants her for himself, and he goes crazy every time he is denied. Then Aizai's moments with his harem pass, and they don't stop fighting over him or kissing and hugging him. On the other hand, in the underworld, it was announced that all the young demons will participate in an Olympics, so the Gremory team goes to their camp, but here we find out that it was all a trap. It turns out that Aizai received a signal that the demons belonging to the Chaos Brigade were going to attack the underworld, and they used the group as bait. One of those demons of the brigade was Deodora, who kidnaps Asia, and here we get the revelation. As we remember, in the first season, several demons wanted to kidnap Asia, and it turns out they were sent by Deodora. He wants her healing power to rearm her and make an Asia that only love him. The group obviously wants to save Asia, so they split up to go through different tests. We see that Aizai learned to read minds through the Oppai. The Heron fights over him. Fred appears, but Kiba defeats him. Finally, Aizai arrives where Deodora was. He rescues Asia. Just when they were going to leave, Asia starts to pray for her wonderful life with Aizai. But a strange light appears and make Asia Desapar, which was launched by this demon who claims to be the descendant of Belzebu, who sent Asia to a dimensional gap and then to kill Deodora. The guy was saying, "I kill your demon, I am better than all." Shut up, says our protagonist, who by believing that Asia was dead releases an immense power of his dragon called Jaegernom, and with that he kills this guy, and in passing all the demons of the brigades are removed. However, Aizai could not control his dragon power, and he behaved violently, in that we see that Bali was going through the dimensional gap looking for something, and on the way he finds Asia and returns it to our heroes. Seeing Aizai's state, he comes up with a plan to bring him back to normal. There is only one thing that can calm our protagonist. Well, actually there are 2 things: Ria's Gremory's breast, although for now they can't get close. Second, later Irina appears with a giant player to play the nursery rhyme that Aizai made, one of the best songs in the history of anime. Thanks to the power of the OPPAI dragon, Ria's manages to show her breasts to Aizai, and as if they were buttons it manages to calm him down. Aizai is reunited with his heron, and we see why Veli was in the dimensional gap. He was looking for the true leader of the dragons, known as the Apocalypse. His goal is to defeat him and be the leader of the dragons. This same objective is for this little girl called Office, who would come to be the main leader of the Chaos Brigade. Aizai says goodbye to Bali, promising that someday he will defeat him, and here they show us that the Chaos Brigade is not so bad. It is only a group pursuing a dream, but to get it they have to do bad things. And finally, our boys return to their school for the sports festival. Asia and Zai do the race they promised each other, and thanks to everything he did for her, Asia proposes and kisses him. Also, Roswit joins the Gremory team because Odin doesn't want her. Now it's the end of how the 3rd season should have ended. Aizai being cornered by all the older girls in his harem because Aizai was going on a trip. It turns out that the school of our heroes was going to take the second-year students to Kyoto, but before Aizai spends some time with his harem, and he also goes to hell because they say that there will be some games between the Gregory family and the Baez family where Zeron was, you remember him right, the strongest young demon. Before our protagonist leaves, he has a small battle with this strong young man, which ends in a draw, and they decide that the victory will be decided in the games. It should be noted that neither of them could win, so they have time to improve their skills. And finally, Aizai has a good night with her president. Rias gives her subjects things that can help them to move around Kyoto, and she gives Aizai a kiss. The group gets on the train where Aizai has an internal conversation with Drake, who introduces him to all the Red Dragon users that were in the story. Most of them were unmotivated, until one of the strongest users appears, this cute old woman named Aisha, who calls him Dragon Oppai. She asks him to open a box with her greatest red dragon power, but just the group arrives in Kyoto, and the power went out to the outside world, and we learn that the dragon's power are the breasts. And she goes around Kyoto possessing men and women to touch her. Although our protagonist for now did not realize it while he spends his time going out with his heron, but for a second he is attacked by a group of semi-human nine-tailed foxes. The group without thinking twice fights with these guys, and we see how Aizai improved his abilities, since being a pawn can take the power of any piece of the group. Then the foxes went away, and the reason why they attack is because their leader, the mother of this little girl named Kanon, was kidnapped by some outsiders. Later there are spicy moments, and all the celestial beings meet with Leviathan, who tells them that the leader of the nine-tailed foxes was kidnapped by members of the Chaos Brigade. The next day they meet with the foxes so that the little girl apologizes to Aizai, and she asks him to rescue her mother. Aizai obviously says yes, and also because the mother has a good breast. Then the group starts sightseeing outside with Kanon until at the bridge they are intercepted by this group of humans known as the Chaos Brigade Heroes Group, and the leader of them all is this man named Kayakao, who is a simple human but a very powerful one who has a spear who gives him power. Azazel arrives to the battle and he uses Fatnik's power while the Gremory group fights with the other henchmen. At the last second, Roswit arrives drunk and she uses all his power, forcing these guys to retreat, but not before telling them his plan, which is to use the power of the mother of the nine-tailed foxes in Kyoto Castle to summon the apocalyptic dragon. The group devises a plan to stop them. On the way they are intercepted by several members of the Chaos, but they are not a problem for them. When they reach the meeting point, the brigade uses the power of the nine-tailed fox to go to the dimensional gap and release the great dragon because Kayakao plans to betray Bali and the entire brigade to become the new leader. He also had some henchmen who had balance breaker, and with that they easily defeat them. Aizai fights with Kayakao, but he is no match for him either. Everything was lost for our protagonist. But the cute old woman talks to him to tell him that his power comes from the Appa and that the energy sphere he lost came back to him with a lot of power. And with a shout he invokes Ria's Gremory, since her breasts are exactly what he needs to unleash his true power. Aizai touches her breasts and he releases his power. Also the carriers Aisha and this guy called Versar say goodbye to the Dragon Oppai, since from now on he will have to fight alone. With all that power thanks to the Oppai, Aizai defeats Kayakao, but while they were fighting the other enemies managed to open the portal to invoke the apocalypse, but instead they invoke the dragon Yunnan together with the Songoku god the Monkey King. With 3 simple movements he defeats the whole brigade while Yunnan calms the fox. In the end Kayakao had no choice but to retreat, but not before Aizai gave him a punch. The human with much rage tells him that in the future they will meet again, and there he will show him the true power of his spear. After that battle Kanon recovered her mother. The leader thanks him for helping he and promises the little girl who apparently fell in love with him that he will return to Kyoto. When the group returns, they get scolded by Rias, although in the end everyone is fine. Now if we go to the final arc of the anime, the Games of Hell, it will only be a friendly match between Rias Gremory's team and Zeron Bao, but before that there was many occasions in which the whole harem wanted to be intimate with the protagonist. Rabel the blonde, who is now in love with our protagonist, went to the human world to be closer to Aizai, and we know more about the character of Zeron, as it turns out to be a character with a brutal origin story, as it is one of the few demons who can't use magic, and his own family pushed him away, except his mother, who always motivated him. Thanks to this he made a physical effort as a demon and he became one of the strongest and most respected. The leader of the family wanted him to participate in the games, as he has no choice but to fight, and his mother is also sick. He entered the games with her chess pieces, although before the games we get to know more about the love between Aizai and Rias. Our protagonist sees Rias as his superior, and he only calls her president even though she showed feelings for him. Aizai never stopped seeing her with the eyes of a president. In short, he only wants to maintain a relationship of queen and employee. Ria's on her side wanted to show him that she is attracted to her, but Aizai never got her hints, breaking her heart. The harem obviously saw the case of Ria's and they found out the reason why Aizai doesn't want to accept her love. That is because he is afraid that the same thing that happened with Rainer will happen again. The fallen angel of Season 1. The other women said that Ria's would be willing to be with him without any problem, but if that happens he doesn't have to forget his other girls. Now if we go to the games it will be just battles. The first one was Kiba and we see that he has his balance breaker and gives the first victory to the Gremory team. Then Kaneko and Roswit. At the beginning it was good and then bad, but in the end they managed to win. Although Kaneko ended up out of the battle, ending with a warrior in the team Gremory. The third encounter is between Aizai and the cute old woman who tried to attract him. But the mistake of this girl is that our protagonist only likes breasts. She didn't want to show it to him and as punishment she received a lightning bolt. Our protagonist was sad because he wanted to see eyes. Now comes my favorite battle, which would be Gasper and Zenobia against a wizard with a horned monster. At the beginning Zenobia was going to be eliminated, but Gasper manages to save her. The little boy leaves Zenobia in a corner to recover while she distracts the enemies. By pure bad luck the giant catches him and hits him, crushes him and insults him. But even so the little one did not want to give up, and having both enemies cornered Zenobia launches her best ability to annihilate all three of them. Gasper sacrificed himself for the team, and this is sadder because it shows that Gasper is more of a man than all the men in this anime. Then Akino, who is defeated by this girl that I already hate. Then the semifinal where Zeron fight against three of the Gremory team, who are defeated without any problem by his own hands. Then another semifinal takes place between Aizai and the girl who defeated Akino. Our protagonist is super angry for hurting his women, and with all that anger he uses an attack that was going to kill her. Luckily Zarian manages to get her out in time. Both characters were eager to fight, so the strong demon orders this battle to be without limits. In other words, these two are going to fight to the death. The judges accept and they decided that this battle will be between kings and pawns. Rias and Aizai against Zeron and his masked pawn, who turns out to be a golden lion. And here begins the final battle of the anime. For a moment Zeron merges with his lion, giving him a super armor, and he defeats Aizai. In that moment he sees again the old users who tell him to use the Jagern and Dry. But in the outskirts all his fans told him, "Come on Dragon Oppai, you can do it." Aizai remembers the words of encouragement, and he remembers that his reasons for living are to protect his harem and protect the Oppais, thus achieving a higher level of his sacred tier, and with all that power he continues the battle. In the end Aizai wins the battle and he hugs Zeron to encourage him in his future, since as we remember this guy is only loved for his strength, and now that he lost the battle all the people who supported him will no longer love him. But apparently that does not matter to the demon, and he is only glad that our protagonist and he have a good friendly relationship. Our heroes return to the school where a festival takes place. The injured members are completely fine, and by the end of the anime at night Rias and Aizai meet again in the meeting room where our protagonist says, "Rias, I love you and I will always love you." Rias cries with happiness, and not because our hero has proposed to her, but because he called her by her name for the first time in the anime. Rias also says that she loves him, and when they were about to close their conversation with a kiss they are interrupted by our heroes who were gossiping. But then they leave for these two to have their moment. Ray will join the harem more because her parents gave their blessing to Aizai to take care of their daughter. There was even an appearance at a time in history Aizai absorbed the power of Bali, and now he has a piece of the white dragon that helped him from time to time.